So excited to have you joining us today. Whether you're a seasoned skin professional, a laser technician, an entrepreneur and business owner, or someone new to this vibrant and ever-evolving industry, you're about to embark on an enlightening journey into the fascinating world of skin science. Today, we'll delve deep into the intricate layers of the skin, unraveling the secrets that lie beneath the surface. So we'll begin by looking at the skin's anatomy and its multiple layers, exploring the structural marvels that protect and define us. We'll also dive into the fascinating realm of cellular biology by looking at key cells within the different layers of the skin and the functions that are crucial for maintaining the skin's integrity and resilience. And we'll also uncover the essential skin processes that keep our skin vibrant and healthy, but also that slow as we age, and also can slow by other external and environmental factors. So prepare to enhance your knowledge, refine your expertise, and ignite your passion for skin science. There will be a Q&A session at the end for me to answer any questions. So let's dive in and discover what truly makes our skin extraordinary. But first, before we do that, I want to quickly introduce myself, your host and educator today, Monica Puckering. Hello, everybody. I have been in the medical aesthetics industry for over 15 years, educating on skin and laser treatments from the college level to a world-renowned skin brand company, and now here with you today at SharpLight Technologies. I am a science nerd at heart and have passion for skin and education. I love learning as much as I can about it as new research develops year after year and we get to know more about the fascinating skin. I truly believe sharing that knowledge is the best way to empower others in this industry to be the best that they can be at what they do. Whether it's facials, selling skincare products, or treating the skin with laser technology, education is power. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So, let's talk about the skin. Did you know that the skin is the largest organ in the body? So organs are two or more different tissues brought together to perform a specific function. There are 11 major systems in the body, and all systems are interrelated and depend on each other to perform each function. The skin is part of the integumentary system. As the largest organ in the body, the skin acts as a barrier to protect your insides from the outside world. It is a complex design of multiple layers that helps to prevent bacteria, viruses, and other pathogens from entering the body. So let's look at some fun skin facts. The skin's weight averages about 8 to 10 pounds. People sometimes say 9 pounds, so between 8 to 10 pounds, and is comprised of blood vessels, glands, nerves, and fibers. Appendages of the skin are hair, nails, sweat, and oil glands. Your skin accounts for about 15% of your body weight. The average person covers an entire area of 2 square meters or 22 square feet. So when you think about that, what's 22 square feet? Well, the average door, front door of a house is actually 20 square feet. So if you laid your skin out flat, it would be just bigger than the average front door. Your skin constantly sheds dead skin cells, about 30,000 to 40,000 cells every minute, or around 500 million skin cells daily. That's nearly 9 pounds a year. Some sources estimate that more than half of the dust in your home is actually dead skin cells, if you've ever wondered what you're vacuuming up. As we age, this shedding of dead skin cells starts to slow down, so we start to see signs of aging on the skin because a buildup of dead, dull skin cells stay on the surface longer. Another fun fact is that the skin isn't just one thickness throughout the entire body. It actually ranges depending on the area. So pop quiz for those skin aficionados. Where is the skin the thickest on the body? And where do you think the skin is the thinnest on the body? I'll give you a second to write in the chat there. See who can get this right. So we see Sharmila thinks the thinnest is the eye area, Giovanna thinks the thickest is the legs, and the thinnest is the face. Sarah thinks the face is the thinnest as well. Eyelids, Amber. Sarah's thinking thinnest bottoms of the feet. Perhaps you meant thickest. Thickest feet and thinnest is the eyes, Valerie says. All right, so give yourselves a pat on the back because a lot of you are correct. When we look at the epidermis, and we'll get into what the epidermis really is, the thickness of the skin kind of varies depending on that location of the body, but in general, the epidermis, the outermost layer of the skin, is actually quite thin. And the eyelids are the thinnest, so about 0.2 to 0.5 millimeters thin. And then the thickest area is the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet, about 1.5 millimeters in thickness. So you guys are correct. So the skin on the soles of your feet is about 7 times thicker than the skin on your eyelids. You got to think about that. You know, you're not putting the same cream on your feet that you're putting on your eyelids. In terms of the other layers, which we're going to get into, but the dermis, this is the layer beneath the epidermis. It actually is quite thicker. It can be around 2 to 3 millimeters thick. And the subcutaneous layer, or the hypodermis, can be 6 millimeters to 20 millimeters thick. So it does get thicker as we go down, but that epidermis, that top layer, thinnest on the eyelids, thickest on the feet or the palms of the hands. That's why we get a lot of calluses there. So now that we've touched on the layers of the skin, let's delve deeper into those fascinating layers of your skin and cover the secrets. Your skin has 3 distinct layers. So the epidermis, as I talked about, is the outermost layer, the top layer. And this is the layer that you see when you look at your body or look at somebody else. That's the epidermis. It actually has 5 layers of its own. So there's 3 main distinct layers, but the epidermis also has 5 layers. Then the dermis, this might be considered the core of the integumentary system, as it accounts for about 90% of the skin's thickness, with 2 layers of its own. And then the hypodermis, so hypo means below, that's how you kind of remember them. They all break down, you know, epi is on, dermis, so derma is the skin, so that main thick layer that contains blood vessels and fibers and nerves. And then the subcutaneous or hypo bottom layer under the skin. This is the bottom layer that cushions your bones and your organs. It's attached to the dermis is attached to the epidermis. So to help you kind of remember and understand each layer better, I want you to imagine your skin as a well-made bed. The top layer, the epidermis, is just like the sheets. Just as the sheets are the first thing you see and touch when you get into bed, the epidermis is the outermost layer of the skin that you can see and feel. It acts as a protective cover, keeping everything clean and secure. Now, what's beneath the sheets is the mattress. This represents the dermis. The mattress provides the main support and comfort, much like how the dermis supports the epidermis and contains vital structures like blood vessels, nerves, and glands. It's thicker and more substantial than the sheets, giving the skin, the bed, its strength and its flexibility. And finally, the box spring. Underneath the mattress is similar to the hypodermis. The box spring provides foundational support, absorbing shocks and maintaining the bed's structure. Similarly, the hypodermis, or also known as the subcutaneous layer, is made up of fat and connective tissue that insulates the body, absorbs impacts, and connects the skin to underlying tissues and bones, ensuring everything stays in place and functions smoothly. So just as the bed needs sheets, a mattress, and a box spring to be comfortable, functional, and supportive, your skin relies on the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis to protect, support, and maintain overall health. Make sense? So now that we've envisioned the skin as a well-made bed, with the sheets as the epidermis, the mattress as the dermis, and the box spring as the hypodermis, let's pull back those covers and take a closer look. Just as each component of a bed has its unique role in providing comfort and support, each layer of the skin has distinct structures and functions essential for our health and well-being. In the next section, we're going to dive into the anatomy of each skin layer. We'll explore the epidermis and its protective layer, the dermis and its robust network of collagen and elastin, and the hypodermis where insulation and cushioning reside. Let's uncover the intricate details that make our skin not just a covering, but a complex dynamic organ. Let's begin our deeper exploration into the skin with a look at the epidermis first. So, we know the sheets, the epidermis, is the top outermost layer of the skin, serving as a protective barrier between the body and the external environment. It's made up of closely packed epithelial cells and has 5 layers. The first layer, the top layer, is the stratum corneum. This top layer of flattened dead skin cells sheds constantly. Then we have the stratum lucidum. This is found only in the soles of the feet and the palms of the hands. So that thicker layer, this is why those areas are thicker. And this layer is actually translucent. Then we have the stratum granulosum. This is a thin layer of flattened cells that have lost their nuclei, allowing them to contain a high proportion of keratin. I'm going to explain what those are shortly as well. Then we have the stratum spinosum, which is the thickest layer, and then the stratum basal, the bottom layer where cells are born and fed by blood vessels in the dermis, that layer that's attached. They contain a nuclei, so they really are the living cells. And this is where you'll also find a very special cell that I love talking about, the melanocyte, which is a pigment-producing cell we'll talk a little bit more about. So let's talk about those key cells that we've mentioned, because our skin is composed of various specialized cells that play distinct roles and crucial roles in maintaining function and health of the skin. So one skin cell that you need to know is the keratinocyte. So these cells actually make up the majority of the epidermis. They are essentially for producing keratin, a structural protein that enhances the skin's strength, resilience, and protection. Then those melanocytes, my favorite thing to talk about. These cells are specialized because they produce melanin. Melanin is the pigment responsible for the color of our skin, our hair, and our eyes. Melanin is special because it provides protection against UV radiation. Approximately 1 in every 10 cells in that basal layer, or in the epidermis, is a melanocyte. So skin color is the result of a protein called melanin, and these large tentacle-like cells you can see in this picture here, they kind of, we picture it like, imagine this being the body of the cell, and they have these dendrites, so these tentacles, that feed the melanin to the surrounding keratinocytes. So they distribute melanin in order to protect that nuclei and also to give the skin its color. Now, human skin comes in a very wide range of colors from all different parts of the world, and around 7% of our skin cells are melanocytes. Now, a fun fact is that everyone, no matter what your skin color, whether you have a dark skin or you're fair skin, we all have the same number of melanocytes. Often people think, well, a darker skin must have more melanocytes, but this is not the case. Skin color is actually due to the activity of the melanocyte, not the quantity. So it's how much melanin is produced by those melanocytes and distributed to the surrounding keratinocytes. There are actually 2 types of melanin. I won't get into this too deep because we are going to have this as another webinar because there's so much to learn about pigmentation. But there are 2 types of melanin, a pheomelanin, which is a yellower to a redder color, and eumelanin, which is darker brown to black. So your melanocytes produce these 2 types of melanin as well. And having too much or too little melanin can lead to some skin disorders. On one end of the spectrum, things like vitiligo, which occurs when melanocytes actually lose their ability to produce melanin. And this can result in whitish patches on the skin. And then on the other side, we talk a lot about hyperpigmentation in this industry, which is the presence of excess melanin. This can cause those darker patches on the skin. Now, let's look at Langerhans cells. This might be something you're not as commonly familiar with. These are immune cells, and they're crucial for alerting the adaptive immune system to the presence of pathogens and other infectious agents on the skin. And our Merkel cells, these cells are important for the proper neural encoding of light touch stimuli, contributing to our sense of touch. So if we're going to touch something hot, we have this cell that allows us to know that we have to pull away. So it sends signals to the brain. Together, these cells ensure that our skin remains a robust barrier against environmental damage while also playing a role in sensory perception and immune defense. Now, since there's 5 layers, we want to dive into each of these layers because they're so intricate. So, this bottom layer, let's start from the bottom to the top. So that bottom layer that is actually called the basal layer, or the stratum basale of the epidermis, produces new skin cells and contains that keratinocyte stem cell that produces the protein keratin. Keratin's a structural protein that gives the skin its strength and flexibility, and this layer also is known as the stratum germinativum. That layer of basal cells it's like a row of column-shaped keratinocytes. You can see it highlighted here with that dark brown layer. These basal cells contain that nuclei you can see. They're constantly dividing and pushing already formed cells towards the surface. So every time we have cell division, we go into like mitosis here, cellular mitosis, where we have cell division. These are being born, and then they're moving their way up. In this layer, the basal layer, is also the oh so important melanocyte. This is that pigment-producing cell, giving skin its color and that UV protection. And these cells sit within the other keratinocytes and distribute that melanin. So about 5 to 10% of the cells in this layer are actually melanocytes. Next layer, above the stratum basale, is the stratum spinosum. So this layer consists mostly of keratinocytes held together by sticky proteins called desmosomes. And this layer actually helps make your skin flexible and strong. So it lies above the stratum basal, and it's typically about 5 to 10 cells thick. And the cells in this layer are initially column-shaped, but eventually become multi-sided as they move upward. Now, their function is for keratin synthesis. So the keratinocyte in the stratum spinosum begins the synthesis of keratin and a tough protein that contributes to the strength and resilience of your skin. It also provides a waterproofing. So these cells also release a water-repelling glycolipid, which helps prevent water loss from your body, making the skin relatively waterproof. As you know, we don't drown when it's raining. Our skin has to have that waterproof coating, but we still have to be able to absorb water. The Langerhans cells in the stratum spinosum, they function as macrophages. They'll engulf bacteria and form particles so that we don't get more damage to the more younger, youthful cells in the basal layer. So in summary, the stratum spinosum plays a crucial role in maintaining skin integrity, flexibility, and protection against environmental factors. Next, we have the stratum granulosum, which lies above the stratum spinosum and below the stratum corneum. Its cells have lost their nuclei. You can see here in the diagram, again highlighted, that they're a bit flattened. They're losing their nuclei, allowing them to contain a higher proportion of that keratin, that structure, that waterproofing. These cells appear more flattened and contain dark clumps of cytoplasmic material. The stratum granulosum is particularly active in keratin production, and it acts mostly as a transitional layer where keratinocyte cells develop into their final form and they eventually die off in that next layer we're going to talk about, the stratum corneum. So this barrier really helps to prevent fluid loss from the body, something we call transient epidermal water loss, and contributes to the overall integrity of the skin. But before we get to that top layer, we want to talk about that translucent layer, the stratum lucidum, that's only found in the palms of the hands and soles of the feet. Now this layer helps reduce friction. Okay, so that's why, like I said, you start to see more callus there. It's in those areas that have a lot of rubbing, right? We walk on the ground and our hands, we touch a lot. So this can sometimes be called the clear layer because it is a translucent layer. You can see in the diagram here, a thicker skin with the stratum lucidum has that little bit of a gap, that's that translucent layer, and then other skin areas without the stratum lucidum, like on your arms or your legs, don't contain that the translucent layer. So then the top outermost layer of the skin is part of the epidermis, and it is called the stratum corneum. It serves as the primary barrier between the body and the environment. Here are some key points. So let's look at what this layer really does. The stratum corneum protects the inner layers of the skin from various external factors. So it shields against physical abrasion. It acts as a barrier against excessive light and heat. It can help prevent harmful microorganisms from entering the body. It helps with water regulation. It prevents that excessive water loss or the transepidermal water loss that can occur if we have sort of a faulty barrier. Things like your eczema is like an example of a faulty layer, and that's why it gets itchy and red and inflamed. It also prevents excessive water absorption, which could lead to swelling or damage. So imagine the stratum corneum as a brick wall, and these corneocytes are like bricks holding the lipids, which is our mortar, together. The structure creates an outer water barrier and prevents dehydration and prevents infection, essentially. So the top layer, that stratum corneum, is constantly in renewal. So these cells die, they flatten, and they slough off. We're going to talk about what that looks like in a moment, but just remember that these are dead cells and they're constantly renewing and dying off. And so let's look at those key processes in the epidermis that you should know. But here you can see the whole process from that basal layer all the way up to the stratum corneum. Everything's being pushed upward. So the time taken by a cell to divide and pass through the entire epithelium is called cellular turnover time. As an epithelial cell migrates from the basal layer to the surface, it goes through the process of maturation. So from a nuclei to a dead skin cell at the surface. And after the cell reaches the surface, it does shed off through the process called desquamation. We don't shed our skin like a snake. In fact, natural exfoliation or desquamation pretty much goes unnoticed. We don't have one shedding a year and we leave a shell of us behind. It's happening on the daily. So the body is always in a state of change. In particular, the cells in your skin are constantly replacing themselves. The skin does this through the process of regeneration and repair. So on a cellular level, the skin cells are constantly shedding, revealing fresh, newly grown skin cells underneath. This is why when you see scars or blemishes, they may fade with a bit of time. And understanding science behind your skin's life cycle can help you to take care of your skin as it goes through the regeneration process. It can also help you boost your skin's natural regeneration process by giving you that fresh glow. So how long does it take for your skin to renew itself? Well, skin cell renewals vary. It actually varies from person to person. But to give you an idea, in babies, like fresh new babies out of the womb, skin cell renewal actually takes around 14 days. So they're getting fresh new baby skin, that juicy collagen-rich skin every 14 days. For teenagers, you can start to slow down to about 28 days. And in middle age, like myself, it can take between 28 to 42 days. And research shows that for even 50 plus years of age, it can take up to 84 days. It can be that slow. So as you get older, that regeneration slows down. And what does that do? Well, this leaves an accumulation of dead skin cells on the upper layer of the skin. And what do you think happens when we have a buildup of dead skin cells on the surface of the skin? Well, a dead skin cell is not as vibrant. It's not as smooth as a newer cell. So we need to boost that natural regeneration process so your skin looks fresher, it has more elasticity, it's smoother, brighter, and not only does age cause the slowing down of that cellular turnover, but there's other factors that can cause it to slow down prematurely. And the big ones are things like sun damage, stress, this is a big one, hormones, diet, and overall health. So, our goal in skin care is to promote healthy skin. What can we do as professionals in this industry, or even at home, to aid or increase in cellular turnover? What do you guys think? What can we do? What's the number one thing we can do to aid or increase our cellular turnover that might slow down as we age, or will slow down as we age, or might slow down prematurely? Michelle for the win. Fast typing. Amazing. Yes, exfoliate. We can do this by incorporating exfoliation. Exfoliation is essentially artificial desquamation. We can use a variety of agents to remove skin cells from the surface of the skin. This can speed up our own natural desquamation process. How does exfoliation do this? By removing that top layer of dead skin cells and buildup through the use of chemical or physical exfoliants or a variety of medical aesthetic treatments. So to give you an idea, some skincare products like chemical exfoliants are AHAs and BHAs, your alpha hydroxy acids, or your beta hydroxy acids will dissolve skin cells and unclog pores, revealing a brighter, smoother skin. And mechanical exfoliants, this can be things like scrubs with smaller granules. These will physically slough off those dead skin cells. There's also enzyme exfoliants that gently break down the keratin in the dead skin cells, promoting that softer, more radiant and even skin texture, a little more gentle using an enzymatic, especially on a sensitive skin. And then the beloved retinol, this vitamin A derivative, actually accelerates cell turnover and helps to reduce the buildup of dead skin cells. So there's a few other kind of skincare products, just because I love talking about it, that can also aid in improving the natural cell turnover process because it helps hydrate the skin. Things like niacinamide or vitamin B3, your antioxidants like your vitamin C or vitamin E, and your hyaluronic acid. These are all really great in aiding in that whole process, keeping your skin hydrated to increase that cell turnover. Now, in terms of treatments, chemical peels are a great way, very common in our industry. These use higher or stronger concentration of acids that you would use at home to deeply exfoliate the skin. Microdermabrasion, a very common non-invasive procedure that uses fine crystals or a diamond tip to gently abrade the skin and remove that outer layer of dead skin cells. Microneedling can also enhance cell turnover. And when we talk about laser treatments, if anyone's familiar with the carbon facial, this is a laser treatment that uses a carbon-based lotion to exfoliate the skin by placing the carbon on the skin, and then we use a laser to attract or blast away the carbon that's actually attached itself to the dead skin cells, and everything is sloughed off. So it's a painless, non-ablative treatment and really effective. And we also have laser resurfacing. Things like fractional skin resurfacing will aid in cellular turnover. So these are going to really help us with preventing premature aging of the skin. This will aid in that cell turnover so that we can remove that buildup, and we're always sort of promoting that those new, healthier cells to reach the surface of the skin. And this will give us a more overall youthful complexion. All right, so that's the epidermis. Let's talk about the dermis, because this is that core of the integumentary system, making up at 90% of skin's thickness. This is the middle layer, and it's made up of dense, irregular connective tissue that houses blood vessels, hair follicles, sebaceous glands, sweat glands, and important fibers such as collagen and elastin, our favorites. It has two layers, so it has the papillary layer, which is the upper 1/5 of the dermis. This is where a lot of the blood vessels bring the nutrients to the cells in the basal layer. Now, the reticular layer is the lower 4/5 of the dermis. It contains dense, closely packed collagen and fiber, elastin fiber. So this is really that architecture of the skin, the major support center. So those three important fibers I want to talk about found in the dermis are collagen and elastin. A lot of you might be familiar with these terms, but what are they? They're proteins. So collagen is a protein that makes skin cells strong and resilient. And a loss of collagen, what does that lead to? Well, we see lots of wrinkles, right? Wrinkles, fine lines is a loss of collagen. And the other protein found in the dermis is elastin. Elastin keeps our skin flexible. It can stretch. It also helps when your skin is stretched to regain strength. So if you look at an older skin that has a lot of loss of elasticity, you don't get that same bounce back if you pinch the skin. It leads, a loss of elasticity can also lead to sagging. We see a lot of droopiness, in the skin. So we want to keep that elastin in high concentrations so that we have firmer, more lifted skin. Now, nerves in the dermis will tell you when something is too hot to touch, itchy, super soft. These are nerve receptors, and they'll help you feel pain as well, which is a defense mechanism. There's also blood vessels in the dermis that provides nutrients to the epidermis, keeping the skin layers healthy. The papillae are finger-like projections that extend into the basal layer, providing nutrients to the cells. And arteries, which are red, they carry nutrients and oxygen. And the veins, the blue blood vessels that we see, remove waste and carbon dioxide. When these vessels get stressed, they can break, and it can lead to broken blood vessels, which you can see on the skin. That can happen through sun damage, through stress, and other skin conditions as well. Now, the nerves that are found in the dermis range from motor nerves. These can stimulate, the erector pili muscle. So the erector pili muscle is attached to your sebaceous gland, to your hair shaft, and will actually cause goosebumps. So if you get cold, the erector pili muscle actually contracts to close sort of that hair shaft and keep the heat in, or that opening. So it really helps with heat regulation as well. Now, sensory nerves send messages to the brain, and they respond to the five senses. And we have secretory nerves as well that regulate that sweat gland excretion and control sebum production. So in the papillary layer, the smaller layer, the 1/5 of the dermis, there's the roots of the hair follicles. So when we're doing laser hair removal, we're trying to reach the dermis because of the root is there. We also have sweat glands in the dermis. They release sweat through the skin pores, and sweat really helps to regulate your body temperature. And we have sebaceous glands. These are oil glands in the dermis that help keep the skin soft and smooth. It creates that protective barrier. And oil also prevents your skin from absorbing too much water when you swim or get caught in a rainstorm. Now, we don't want to remove all of the oil in our skin. Gone are the days of thinking, oily skin is bad. We obviously don't want excess oil that leads to buildup and clogged pores. However, oil is very vital and essential to a healthy skin barrier. And in that thicker layer of the dermis, the reticular layer, we have dense irregular connective tissue containing mainly type 1 collagen fibers that form a meshwork, and also some elastic fibers that contribute to that elasticity. And this is also where those nerves reside as well. Now, a few cells I want to highlight in the dermis are fibroblasts. So fibroblasts, you may have heard of collagen and elastin, but did you know that fibroblasts are responsible for manufacturing the collagen and elastin? Now, collagen and elastin can also aid in wound repair. So fibroblasts in scar tissue form collagen differently. So we usually get type 3 collagen coming to that wound site. And that's why it's thicker, less flexible than regular skin tissue. But we can break down skin tissue and lead to, a better, more flexible, healthier looking wound area by actually treating it with things like laser treatments. Now, mast cells produce histamine and decrease blood pressure. They're immune cells that are found in the dermis. Get a little sip of water here. Hope everybody's following along and I'm answering questions as we go. I haven't seen any come through so far. So that's the dermis. So we've gone from the epidermis to the dermis, the epidermis in its 5 layers, dermis in its 2 layers. Let's talk about the hypodermis, or the subcutaneous layer, which is the deepest layer, made up of mostly adipose tissue, which is your fat, and connective tissue. It provides protective cushioning, gives contour, smoothness, provides energy, and decreases with age. That's why, losing too much fat doesn't actually ages you, right? We need a little bit of that plumpness, just like a baby. We love their big plump skin. And that's because, they have lots of collagen production. They have that healthier epidermis that renews more frequently. And they've got lots of body fat to protect them from falls and things like that. So the hypodermis will help with insulation. The subcutaneous layer, consisting primarily of fat, allows to act as like an insulator, essentially. It regulates body's internal temperature depending on the surrounding environment. So thermal regulation, the blood vessels in the hypodermis also dilate to cool the body down. And it acts as for shock absorption, protecting like the bones of our body, the organs, from falls and impact, that could damage our bones and internal organs. It also acts as structural support. The subcutaneous contains the skin with the fibrous tissue of the bones and muscles underneath, and as an energy reserve. So the body can convert fat stored in the subcutaneous layer to energy if it needs an energy boost. So important layer, it's the deepest. So when we do body contouring, we're actually trying to reach that subcutaneous layer. So that takes us to the end of our skin layers. And now that you're more familiar with the layers and the sublayers of the skin, I want to look at why healthy skin is so important by defining the 7 main functions of the skin to really help us understand what is its purpose. I see some questions coming through. I will answer them at the end for you. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about the first function of the skin, which is protection. I would say probably the most important and number one thing that comes to the mind of what's the purpose of your skin, it's to protect you. Now, it does protect itself in various ways. So sebum is an oily substance that mixes with lipids to form a protective coating in the skin. It's produced by the sebaceous gland that we talked about, right, that we know is in the dermis, and it hydrates the skin surface. And we have that keratin that acts as a waterproof shield. And that transepidermal water loss that I mentioned, this is the evaporation of water through the epidermis to the surrounding atmosphere. So TOOL is increased when there's a damaged or impaired skin barrier. When the skin lacks adequate lipids to create the protective barrier, we have transepidermal water loss occurring. Now, lipids are delicious oils that make up intercellular cement between cells, contributing to barrier function. Very important. And our melanocytes, which aren't highlighted here, my apologies, but very important cell that is a part of protection function of the skin, because it's that melanin that protects the nuclei and the DNA of our cells from damaging UV radiation. We also have an acid mantle. So our skin's pH is slightly acidic. It's between a 4.5 and 5.5 on the pH scale. And it's a very thin, delicate, slightly acidic film that covers the entire surface of the skin, and it acts as a barricade from bacteria and pathogens trying to penetrate. That brown pigment, that melanin that's found in the distributed from the melanocytes in the surrounding keratinocytes will protect your skin from sun damage. There's another cell called phagocytes. These are a type of white blood cell from your immune system. These actually ingest harmful foreign particles, bacteria, necrosed cells. And the horny layer, so the outermost layer of the skin consists of thick dead tissue protecting underlying tissue from external factors. These are sort of the main ways that the skin protects itself and the body beneath. Another function of the skin is regulation. So the skin aids in thermal regulation for the body via the sebaceous and sudoriferous glands. Hair follicles and sweat glands help by with overheating by cooling through evaporation. So sweat on your surface of your skin isn't actually cooling you, it's the evaporation of the sweat. So that'll cool your body when you are in like a hot sunny day or in a hot environment. Now there's vasodilation and vasoconstriction that happens. Our blood vessels will expand in warm, hot temperatures to reduce body temperature. So you start to see an expansion of our blood vessels trying to cool. And constriction is when it's cold out, we try to keep the heat in. So individuals who may often exercise outside, often, like runners, for example, they get like internally hot, but maybe they're running out in the winter. So they're warm inside and they're but the temperature outside is cold. So this body wants to vasoconstrict to keep the warmth in. However, because you're running and you're hot, you're actually vasodilating. So when that happens, you often see runners with broken capillaries. I get broken capillaries a lot along my collarbone from running outside in those cooler temperatures. So that can happen often. Now, absorption, another function of the skin aids in that thermal regulation for the body via the sebaceous gland. Products applied to the skin can be taken in through follicles and sweat glands, and water-based products are absorbed through diffusion, whereas oil-based products are absorbed via the hair follicle. So, we often say you need the perfect balance between water and oil, right? We want that helps keep the skin balanced and healthy. We need water and oils. So you can layer, your water-based products first, and then your oily-based products over top, because that will help with that protective coating. Another function of the skin is sensation, as we talked about. So overall, the skin contains those nerves, endings, and receptors, and this gives us awareness of our environment. It's really important, right? It's a defense mechanism. It allows our bodies to respond to touch, pain, cold, heat, and pressure. Now, excretion and secretion, the two things I'm going to talk about next. So sweating occurs when your body becomes heated and attempts to cool itself. Remember that thermal regulation we talked about. So this function of excretion is really to do with the sweat. So the skin produces sweat in glands found all over your body, more abundantly on your forehead, underarms, palms of your hands, and soles of your feet. The skin secretes sweat through tiny holes called pores, and when the sweat hits the air makes it evaporate and evaporates off the skin, cooling you down. There are two types of sweat glands: eccrine glands, which are all over the body, and apocrine glands, which are on the underarms only, which is why we sweat more on our underarms. Now, secretion, another function of the skin, it originates from glands in the epidermis. Sweat is secreted by sweat glands to aid in temperature regulation. Sebaceous glands secrete a skin lubricant called sebum, a very important lubricant, and it's secreted through that hair shaft or that hair follicle and distributed all over the skin surface, where it lubricates and waterproofs the entire outer layer of the skin. Now, individuals with excessive sebum causing that buildup you'll end up with a clogged pore, and even individuals with like really curly hair, really dense curly hair, where the sebum can't be wicked out effectively, can start to get sort of pimples and breakouts in their hair follicles as well. So that's why things like hair removal, laser hair removal particularly, can aid in that, because they're actually getting trapped, that sebum, versus allowing it to make its way out. And lastly, the seventh function being immunity, very important. The skin provides a passive physical barrier to protect the skin, or the body, from infection and pathogens. The skin has an invisible ecosystem of microorganisms called the microbiome. Now, this is a term that's becoming more and more heard of in our industry. There's more science and research coming forth because, they didn't realize the importance of the good bacteria on our skin in the past, right? When we would deal with things like acne. We know acne is formed by P. acnes bacteria. This is a bad bacteria. Everybody has it, but when it proliferates, it's considered bad because it leads to inflamed cysts and nodules. But back in the day, we would treat it with things like benzoyl peroxide, which is great at killing bacteria, but what it was doing was killing the good bacteria in our skin at the same time. So we weren't really helping our skin to provide its own protection or its own fight against the bad bacteria, because we were killing the good bacteria that actually works to protect us. So now in the skincare industry, we're starting to use microbiome-friendly ingredients, skincare ingredients that actually help to nourish the good bacteria, things like glycerin, for example. So your skin hosts a microbiome that can contain more than 1,000 types of bacteria, and these tiny ecosystems are mostly friendly bacteria, right? And they're help to improve wound healing, reduce skin inflammation, and assist in the immune system fighting infection. These bacteria were once thought to outnumber your own skin cells 10 to 1, but more recent research has found the ratio is more close to 1 to 1. So let's not kill off all of our good bacteria. Let's feed our good bacteria with things like prebiotics and probiotics. So those types of ingredients will be helpful. We want that good bacteria in order to have less inflamed skin and a more of a protective layer. So those are the 7 functions of the skin overall. Now that we've dived deep, understand each layer, understand the skin like a bed. We have those sheets that we need to change regularly to make it fresh, clean, just like your skin has to desquamate regularly so that we have that smoother, more youthful, brighter looking skin. Then we have that mattress, that dermis for that structure, support, and all of the good fibers that give us, a smoother surface to our skin. And then the hypodermis, that structure, that cushioning, that protection, like the box spring. So looking at the healthy skin barrier, why it's important to maintain this, it's crucial for overall skin health. The skin barrier can be compared to a wall made of bricks and mortar. So the bricks represent the skin cells. The bricks bind together with mortar, so that represents the lipids and natural oils that hold the skin cells together. Its main job is to protect you from pathogens while balancing your skin's moisture levels. Basically, your skin barrier helps keep the bad stuff out, your irritants, pollutants, bacteria, and the good stuff in, our water and our oils. So to summarize, the skin's main job to protect you from pathogens while balancing your skin's moisture levels. Basically, your skin barrier helps keep the bad stuff out, as I mentioned, good stuff in, by looking at the different key points here. So protection against environmental damage, let's look at that brick and mortar kind of analogy. Just like a sturdy wall protects a building from wind, rain, and pollutants, a healthy skin barrier shields the body from environmental damage, harmful UV rays, and pollutants. It helps to prevent moisture loss in a well-maintained wall. The mortar between the bricks is what prevents gaps, right? So that moisture can't leak out or escape. So similarly, the skin barrier prevents transepidermal water loss by keeping the skin hydrated, preventing damage, dryness, and irritation. It also keeps out harmful substances. So a wall keeps out unwanted intruders. So the skin barrier functions the same way, blocking those pathogens, that bacteria and toxins, from penetrating and causing infections or skin issues. And it maintains skin structural integrity. So just like a wall, stability relies on both the bricks and mortar. So you can't have bricks without the mortar or else they'll fall off. You know, they're not stuck together in that case. So healthy skin requires strong skin cells and a robust lipid matrix. So this combination is what really contributes to skin's elasticity, firmness, and that smooth appearance. So we know drier skin doesn't look as bright, doesn't look as youthful. We need those lipids to keep those skin cells healthy and intact. And then lastly, it supports healing and repair. So when a wall is damaged, the mortar helps to fill in the gaps and repair the structure. So, you know, if we have to rebuild it using both bricks and the mortar. So a healthy skin barrier promotes efficient wound healing and repair by providing a stable environment for skin cells to regenerate. So bricks and mortar, like a wall, our skin protects our insides from the outside world. We need them to both be healthy and functioning synergistically in order to not have things like transepidermal water loss or infection and inflammation from a faulty layer. So that's sort of overall why it's so important for us to maintain healthy skin cells, healthy skin functions, as we went through all 7 main functions. And we can do this, you know, with one simple task by exfoliating the skin and hydrating the skin with both water and oil-based products. And then, you know, moving from that, looking at, you know, the general skin science of Skin 101, you know, the layers, the anatomy, the key cells, there's a lot of cells there. We are going to dive into more of those skin conditions that arise because of specific cells in the body or processes in other webinars. So I will let you know when our next webinar is going to be coming up, but I wanted to give some time to answer some questions. In this little Q&A session here, we'll take about 5 minutes. I do see Ellie asking for the thickness of each layer in general, and Sarah asking, I've heard the multifunctional devices tend to be less effective compared to devices that perform a single task and professionally and specifically. Is this true for SharpLight as well? When it has multiple handpieces and performs various tasks, does its quality decrease? So Sarah, I'll answer Sarah's question first because it's actually a common question. It's, you know, at the start of the industry when, you know, technology was older, right? But years ago, it was just coming up. Single-use devices were more common, but technology evolves. Your cell phone, right? Your Apple iPhone, if that's what you have, or your Samsung, it can do a lot more than your first flip phone, right? Would you say the technology is less effective? So I just want you to think about that, right? We know technology evolves, science, research, testing evolves and improves. So when we have multi-tech devices, the technology itself is not less effective. What we do at SharpLight is make sure that anything that we offer as a treatment is just as effective, but allows you the functionality of not having to switch out a full device. You know, we know rooms are smaller, so to be able to just swap hand pieces, but the technology is evolved. Just like airplanes, you know, airplanes used to be small with the Wright brothers, starting out that way. Now we have jumbo jets. So technology evolves, our technology evolves, it allows us to offer multi-tech devices so that you can treat multiple concerns, because as you can see, looking at skin science, there are multiple concerns, multiple things we need to do in order to maintain a healthy skin barrier or aid in cellular turnover or treat hyperpigmentation. So we want to have a good understanding of the skin so that we can offer the best treatments, which may require different types of treatments to really gain the healthiest skin possible. I hope that answers your question, Sarah. And Ellie, we can go back to the thickness of each layer. So let me just pull it up here. Maybe you missed it at the beginning. want to get my notes here so I don't tell you. Oh, here we go. So the epidermis is about 0.5 to 1.5 millimeters. The dermis is 2 to 3 millimeters thick, and that hypodermis is about 6 millimeters to 20 millimeters thick. It all depends on the person. Okay, Ellie, hopefully that helps answer your questions. Do we have any other questions before we bid farewell and I let you know what to expect next in our Skin Science webinar, which is going to be Understanding Pigmentation. That'll be our module 2, a subject I love to talk about, getting to really dive into the melanocyte. What does hyper and hypopigmentation look like? What are some of the treatments that we can offer, and what are we targeting when we're treating pigmentation? So really excited to share this next module with you. So stay tuned to, at Sharplight Inc. On Instagram, letting you know when this is going to be in the coming months. So please stay tuned. Cheryl, you're so welcome. I hope you all feel more informed. Like I said, some of you, this may be a refresher. This may have been like going back to school if you're a medical esthetician or an esthetician by trade. For some of you, this may have been something brand new and a lot of information. So just remember that Venn analogy breaks it down to really help understand those 3 distinct layers and how each layer has its own layers with really important cells that all work together to maintain a healthy skin barrier and healthy skin functions so that we can protect ourselves from the outside world and look youthful and glowing all at the same time. All right, a few more webinars on each of the hand pieces. So this Skin Science series is really about the skin, and we'll touch on some of the treatments. Like today, we really just touched on exfoliation because we were talking about skin function and the layers. So, the understanding pigmentation, we'll talk about some of the treatments, again, which of the Sharplight treatments that we offer that can treat pigmentation. But there will be other webinars on different subjects related to Sharplight as well. So just stay tuned. If you aren't following our Instagram page, that's the best way to get into the know of what's coming next. And always, we appreciate your feedback, what subjects and topics you'd like to hear of next. Ask Anshu how to cure broken capillaries on the cheeks. Amazing. We have options for that with even our VP Dual and our VP 535 hand pieces. And I'll be getting to the skin science of that as well in one of our modules. We'll get into skin sensitivity and its conditions as well. So I hope you can stay tuned for that. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining me today. It was great to see you all and for participating. Hope you learned a lot, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I'm seeing a lot of questions about recording. There will be a recording available. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Bye for now.